Hey, this is Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where best friends recap romance novels while interrogating themselves, having minor existential crises, and cackling in the face of that sublime adventure. Like many of you, I've had the people of Maui on my mind since it's been ravaged by the wildfires. In case you missed it, Lucy Eden has organized a Romance for Maui auction, and there are some absolutely incredible items that you can bid on. And if you're listening on release day, that's August 21st, this is the very last day that you can bid. I'm going to link that in the show notes for you. And I've decided that we're going to do our annual Patreon fundraiser to benefit Maui relief organizations. So, from now until September 18th, anyone who signs up as a new patron or increases their current pledge, we will double that amount and donate it to help the people of Maui recover. So, for example, if you sign up as a $5 patron, you get access to those 170 bonus episodes that we have in our back catalog, and we donate $10. If you're currently a patron, you can increase, and we will double that amount. So if you go from being a $10 patron to a $20 patron, we'll donate $40. And you can still get the 10% annual discount. But if you decide to pay annually, I do not apply that discount to the donation total. So if you sign up for an annual membership at the $15 level, you still get a $10 discount, but we will donate $30. The organizations we'll be splitting the donations between are the Maui Food Bank and the Maui Fire Relief Fund. Being born and raised there, it's especially heartbreaking to see just how devastating these have been. So if you've been on the fence about Patreon, now's a perfect time to sign up. You get access to the entire back catalog and all the other goodies, and your dollars go to help the people of Maui. And on the subject of Patreon, we have some brand new patrons along with some old friends that I want to shout out. So new this week are Miranda, Austin R., Giselle H., Chelsea W., SM, Lauren S., and Jessie O.S. And then we've got some longer-term patrons that I want to send big, giant smooches to. So, Kate G., Melissa S., Audrey R., Isadora B., Sarah Lee M., Rosie W., and Leslie, thank you so much for being patrons. Okay, y'all. Today is a momentous occasion because Alexis and Kimberly Lemming are back, and we dive into some dark romance. This is going to be part 1 of King of Flesh and Bone. Patrons, part 2 is up on Patreon right now for you to consume, so you won't have to wait until next week. Otherwise, part 2 will be next week's regular episode. For today, we've got some trigger warnings. In this episode, we discuss death, murder, suicide, dubious consent at best, and one could argue no consent, violence, sexual violence, and forced servitude. So take care if any of those are going to be too much for you right now. All right, here we go. Okay, here's the thing. So first of all, I am like on a 13. Like this book has put me in a place. I came down earlier so that I could get here, and Michael was taking care of the rest of bedtime. And I thought to myself, I think I hear him coming down the stairs. And then I did come out into the kitchen as he was moving in from another direction. And I literally startled like a cat. I jumped, I hit all fours. I literally did this with my hands. It was like my tail was bushy. And he was like, oh yeah, you would have done a really great job with whatever intruder you're worried about. And literally, it was like, oh, danger.
Yes.
Everything is danger in my mind right now.
Yeah.
I don't know what this book did to me, you wonderful assholes.
We've been out.
Did we not warn you that our brains became rewired after we read
Yes.
this?
No, you
did we not warn you?
No, you absolutely did. And that's part of it. That's part of it. I feel like I betrayed myself.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Because there's the before King of Flesh and Bone times and the after times. And like, I only understand my life in the after times.
Now, I just want to preface listener and you, Melody, with how I came about this book and after I sent it to Alexis.
Yes.
Because, so there's dark romance and then there's dark romance.
Yes.
Correct.
And I didn't know which this was going to be. And so I King of Flesh and Bone. It's going to be an evil god. There's going to be some morally gray shit. Sure. Twin loves that. Let me send it to her because I've already started reading it and falling in love. I get deeper into the storyline and realized this is a very fucked up book. This is an extremely fucked up book that I sent to Alexis, who has not messaged me a single thing about it. Oh my God. Yeah. Did I ruin our friendship with this book?
At the same time, I am reading this book and going,
put it down.
I love this book. And then I'm like, I'm a broken person.
Am I okay?
I can't tell Kim I love this book because she hasn't mentioned it. So she probably read it like a sane person. It was like, nope.
That was like hard limits all over the place.
Meanwhile, I read it fearing I broke my friendship with Alexis and then immediately read book 2 because I couldn't fucking stop.
You were like, the friendship's over anyway, you know?
It's over.
Like,
so I am burning in my soul to talk about this book. I'm burning all up inside. And so eventually, I think like 2 weeks after the fact, I just messaged Alexis like, so I read the whole thing in book 2. And she's like, me too! Oh my God!
And everybody felt better.
Everyone felt better. And I have to understand, listener, you need to know, I sent this book to a girlfriend of mine because I was like, I love this book. And she was like, she came back to me and she's like, I read this book and I kept whispering to myself every 5 seconds, what the fuck? She's like, but I didn't stop reading it. Like,
I started pulling a heroin and being like, none of it's real. None of it's real. It's illusions.
It's an illusion.
The whole time, I'm just like, I should not be into this. But for some strange reason, when it's a fucked up god railing me against a pile of bones, I'm suddenly fine with it. I'm actually great. Doing great over here.
In it to fucking win it.
Yeah.
I listened to at least 2 chapters, 2 fairly early chapters of this on a playground as I was dropping off my child for her last day of camp. Because, you know, I am boss babe or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you never stop the hustle, I guess.
Multitasking.
And like, I cannot, my eyes, I was like, I don't know. I had this moment where I was like, do I need to take away my own romance cred? Because my eyes were saucers the whole time.
It's a wild book. And it is, listen, it's a wild book, but it's, first of all, the writing is incredible. Like,
phenomenal.
The writing is top fucking notch.
Holy cow, the writing is incredible. And also, it is a book, I mean, it's a 2-parter. So, like, be warned, like, just be prepared to read both books. And I am genuinely, like, usually with a duo, I'm kind of like, ugh. This was one of those books where, like, it was not big. You needed the duo. So, like, you just have to think of the 2 books as one book. But it is, like, upon rereading it the 8 millionth time, it's so smart. It's
so smart.
So smart.
The way, oh my God, before we find out, I'm so sorry. I just have to say this out loud because it's a detail that I'm going to forget if we're in the middle of the recap.
Yes.
There is a moment. Okay, so you know how when she's getting drugged by that mule, her head is going thud, 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 but you don't know it's her head.
Yes.
Then later on, before we know what his powers do, she takes one of the slippers and drops it on the ground and it makes the sound thud.
Yes. Yes.
How fucking dare you? I didn't understand it until, I don't know, 60 pages later.
Yes. Like, this is what I'm saying. Homegirl, Homegirl is doing the work.
Wow.
And that is why we continuously stalk her socials. Liv,
yes.
Where is the next book?
Where is the next book? I feel like a crazy, because, like, I try to be chill. Because, like,
no, I know. We know too many author friends. We have too many authors.
Yeah. But I don't.
We know what it's like, but, like,
I don't care.
Hi.
Live,
yeah,
girl,
hey.
honey, if you could hear us.
I would just like to interrupt real quick to call Alexis out, because as one of her author friends, she's never been chill. She's never been chill about getting the book she wants. I am currently still in book jail.
You're in book jail. That's right.
This is true.
No, but but I love how we both are like, yeah, no, we're going to be totally chill about it. And yet that's like, I don't know, a third of what we do on the Discord. It's just like putting each other in jail to make sure the creative shit happens.
Exactly.
Like I was in podcast jail last week and I deserved it.
Yeah, listen.
Did I get it done? I did.
You did because it worked. You know what I mean? Like,
holy fuck. Okay. We just have to do it because we just have to talk about this for 8 hours.
Yes. We have to start from the beginning where...
Okay, so first of all, it's been a minute since a first page of a sentence of a book has just knocked me on my fucking ass. It says, "The dead are restless. I glanced out the rain-blurred window toward the cemetery, the air inside the house thick with sweat and the sweetness of amniotic fluid."
Yes.
What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah. The book
fact that
comes
it starts
in hot.
Yeah. With a birth that might end in a zombie baby, I was like, I have to get this to Alexis right fucking now.
Oh my God.
And
I was like, are we in Hades? Like, is the whole book set in Hades? Like, are we in hell? Are we on a physical plane? Like, what the fuck is going on?
It's wild because what's happening is no one is dying, okay? So the king of flesh and bone is not rotting the dead. And so the whole world, particularly on a full moon, is just full of the dead, just like being alive, roaming around, their bodies rotting, groaning. They have they call it the groan pits, which is where they sort of pile the dead. And like this woman is like, she's like a midwife, and it's like giving me witchy vibes because they are awful to her. It's like they need her services, but they call her an unwoman because she was not able to give her husband a child. And so like there's a whole bunch of superstition around her, and
like it could be catching, they think.
And it's
that
they won't even
stuff.
pay her for her services, which honestly irritated me the most. Pay the bitch.
Pay her. Like this is but it is like, it is you have to understand going to this book. This is it's horror. Like, it's horror.
It is.
Absolutely makes your skin crawl.
It absolutely is. Because the current predicament the heroine is in, Ada, is she's trying to get this bitch to give birth because she needs to go and weigh down the top of her husband's grave, lest he get up and start walking around with the head wound that put him in the grave, and somehow she gave him the head wound. So I'm like, is she a murderer for reasons also? And then this lady is literally trying to keep this baby up inside her because she wants to wait until daybreak, until after the full moon, because if it's after the full moon, she will know whether or not this baby is a stillbirth, or if it's a live baby actually. Because if it's born during the full moon, even if it's a stillbirth, it will be animated. And you'll like snuggle it all night and then find out in the morning that it is not actually living.
I should also note that there is an added level of horror because most of the time the corpses don't do shit and just like groan around. Other times they'll fucking snap and tear you to pieces. Like, keep in mind, that is a thing.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did not.
No, never.
Because I was like, oh God, is she going to get killed by her own baby? That's intense.
It is also a torrential downpour. Like,
oh my God,
it is storming. It's muddy. It's awful outside. And here's the thing. This is how you know, because homegirl's doing the work. This is how you know Ada is that bitch.
Yeah.
Anyone else would be excused from saying, you know what? It's actually just too gangster outside. I'm not going to wait out my husband's grave. I can't do it.
No.
And it's completely reasonable because she's got to like hitch up a mule. She's got to like ride a carriage out there with a bunch of stones in the back. Like, you would be forgiven for saying it is raining. It's pouring. It's like mud and water. I can't get there.
Yeah. This is legitimately unreasonable.
Yes. And she is like,
she won't.
This is my word. I made this vow.
I made a promise.
Yeah. I'm going.
Yeah, Ada always keeps her word. That's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is important.
So, this baby comes out and she like cradles it to her chest because one of the only things she's ever wanted in her whole life is to have kids. And then she gives it to the mom, and the dad has already walked in being like, what are you doing here, unwoman? Like, you shouldn't be around me and my breeders, you know?
Yeah.
And so she's like feeling terrible about herself and she leaves. Her dad is trying to talk her out of going to weigh down this grave because her husband was actually a big giant asshole.
He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, he threatened to sell her to like a really terrible brothel because she wasn't giving him a son.
Yeah, yeah. And mind you, this is like, it's also like, it's so clever because she's also giving you a sense of the world. And so people are sort of pumped up on their piety and she's an unwoman and unclean. But like, actually the world is awful because it's not just that he was going to do this because he was a bad dude. It was his right to do this. This was him selling her to a brothel because she couldn't have babies was just like, oh yeah, that's just the law.
That's normal stuff.
It's just what do you mean? Was it a Tuesday? It's fine. Like,
and I love the religious dynamic of it because in this world, all of the priests basically burned the books of the before times when they took over. It's like no one's allowed to read books that are not of the church. Most of them are illiterate. Right. And the priest is just like up on all his fucking golden earrings and shit, doing some fuck shit. It was such a nice touch.
Yeah, yeah.
It really, really was. So as she's with her dad trying to get this mule to weigh down her husband's grave, she walks into the barn and that mule is dead. And she's like, well, fuck, I have to take you for like one more ride, I guess. Like, please just work with me here.
And the dad's like, no.
Yeah.
The dad's like, cool your fucking jets, man.
He's so reasonable. He's like honestly,
the most reasonable father in a book ever.
He truly is.
Absolutely.
He's just like, fuck this guy. You don't need to do this.
Fuck this guy, fuck this mule, fuck this whole night. Let's go have some cocoa or something. God. And she just can't. So she gets like the bridle or whatever the fuck it is around it, gets outside, the mule starts bucking, she gets caught on her leg, and then the mule takes off.
Yes.
Because we find out later that everything dead has this instinct to go toward what they call the pale court.
Right. Their king is calling them.
That's the one. Yeah. And so this mule just spooks and goes. And then, like, end chapter, question mark?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. That was the end of the chapter.
Yeah, that's the end of the chapter. And then well, as you said, she's like being dragged and you're hearing her head knock around and she's like being, obviously significantly injured. And then she sort of like is lying there and then hears this conversation.
Yeah, after she also hears this disembodied thud.
Yes.
Thud. She has no idea what the thuds are.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then she hears this voice. And so the King of Flesh and Bone is there with his servant Orlais. And he comes in very hot because his first complaint is about how they have not left wine. Like...
She's like, there's a new dead mule here. And he's like, is there alcohol on that fucking mule?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's all he cares about in the world.
All he cares about. And Ada is sort of like half hearing this conversation. And the description of him, I have to read it, is like my favorite because she says, like she looks up at him and she knows who he is and she says, Cold, colorless eyes locked with mine, set in a face with a straight nose and firm jaw, all framed by long black hair. It brushed over a white, untied shirt, barely hiding his well-thewed chest, hem shoved into black breeches, no rich embroidery, no gold chains, no embellishments. Nothing gave him away as more than a man, a wicked creature not of this world, yet I recognized him as who he was. Girl.
Oh. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
he looks at her with this look of absolute disdain.
Yes. Like loathing. And mind you, I'm on board.
Yeah,
because I love that he is so otherworldly. Like, it is making this point that, like, he is otherworldly. Like, I think, no doubt, he's handsome. He could get it. But, like, not in, like, he doesn't...
Not in a normal way.
No.
No. You're not going to see him at B-dubs.
No.
This man does not eat chicken wings.
No.
On just casual, like.
No, he does not. And
wow.
He is honestly not that impressed with her. Like,
no, at all.
His first words, like, not even to her, but about her, are, "How did this mortal enter my court?"
Yes. Yeah. Like,
and like, and then he's like, "This bitch is a Trojan horse. She got tied to this mule. This mule brought her to me.
Yes.
It's some kind of Trojan horse situation, and we got to take care of this."
Meanwhile, she is actively dying on the ground because she was dragged by a mule for many miles. She's coughing up her blood. She can barely speak. And then he's drowning, yelling at her. Like, "Answer me. Who sent you?" And she's like, and poor Orlais is just like, the bitch is drowning in her own blood. She cannot answer you. And he is just so ensconced. Like, don't you fucking die on my floor. No mortals die in my court. Drag the bitch's ass outside. She could die in the bones there.
Right. He said, "No mortal will die and find rest in my kingdom."
Yes.
So he's like, you know what? All I have to do is take her. Basically, he's Disneyland.
Yeah.
Nobody dies on Disneyland's premises. You take them over the border.
Yeah.
And then they can do whatever they need to do. Yeah. But for him, he's going to snap their necks.
Yeah. But
then she hears a disembodied voice say, like, "Come to me. Let me take your breath." And then all of a sudden she hears the king snarl, "I forbid you to go to him."
Yes.
What the fuck does any of this mean? The reader thinks to herself.
But
I'd rather mend your flesh and keep you alive than have you die and make me an oath breaker.
Yes. This line, because within the first few pages, first few chapters, she's establishing that Ada is a woman of her honor. Her word is her bond. That has true meaning to her. She will sacrifice anything to keep it. And he also has this same obsession, right, with the honor of his word, because that is why he keeps her alive, because he is like, "Oh, I already said I'm not doing this. You're not gonna make me an oath breaker." And like, oh, it's so good. Oh,
yeah,
well, and I didn't realize this until later, but looking back on it, my understanding is that he wouldn't let her die and go to him because then he would have technically like harvested her flesh, right? If she died in his kingdom, he would have harvested her.
Right.
And that's wild because we don't know any of that context right now.
No.
But then he looks at her and he's like, "You're so warm. My court is so cold." And he says, "Your heart will beat for eternity, and no age shall befall your warm body while in my service, little mortal. The king's dark whisper hushed against my sweat-pearled temple. Welcome to the pale court."
Oh my God.
End chapter.
Mams.
End chapter.
Sploosh.
Y'all.
Fucking sploosh.
I was on board. My bags were packed.
Yep.
I was in it to win it at this point. But I also felt real weird about it.
Yes.
Real weird about it.
Yes.
Oh, it only gets worse.
Oh, it only gets worse. It only gets worse.
The amount that I was conflicted during this book until I wasn't all of a sudden. And I hadn't even noticed when I crossed that line. I didn't notice when I did a complete 180 and would die for him.
Yes. Yes. It is.
God damn it.
It's wild because like it does not start out. His words are like she wakes up in a bathtub and like Orly the servant is like Orly however you say Orly is like washing her and like she is sort of immediately making plans trying her damnedest
hold on
out.
Yeah Kim yeah
before we get to that I need to tell y'all how chapter 4 opens because it's very important.
Please.
Darkness hummed a melody followed by a voice like teeth scraping over rock. Flesh and scar, skin and bone, feed her body to the throne. Who's talking in her head?
Who's in there?
Who's mucking up in her head? Okay, continue.
We have no idea.
Not yet.
And we don't find out for a fucking minute. Zander.
Yes. But when we do, baby, when we do.
I mean, it pays off.
Oh, it does.
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. So she notices that Orly is in fact a corpse.
Yeah.
And then she, like, the whole court is like, she calls it alabaster, and she thinks it's like all stone and whatever. She's eating off of this like smooth pottery. And so she's like, how come you move and talk? Like, how come you're sentient? And she's like, oh, because, you know, the master tied my soul to my body or something. Right. And so I'm his servant forever, right, basically. And so she's like trying to figure it out because at this point she's thinking he's a king. There's obviously something like mystical going on. Yeah. But, you know, she's at like king level. Yeah. And he walks in while she's having a bath and forces her to stand up.
Yep.
So she stands up with her back to him, still covering all the bits. And, oh my God. Oh, I just love it. I just love it so much.
He, like, does not fuck around telling her, like, all the things he finna do and how he's gonna, like, there's no, like, slow going here. It's actually, it's fascinating because he starts at a 10. He starts with the physical right away, and it doesn't occur to him because he's not human, like, in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't occur to him to, like, try and match her, like, to seduce her or to whatever. And it's like there's a line that comes later that is super fascinating, but I'll come back to it. But, like, at this point he's just like, you're mortal, you're in my court, I own you, like, let's go, you're gonna be begging for it, like.
Literally, because he controls your flesh and your desires, and he can make you beg for it.
Hey.
Okay, I'm so sorry, listener. This is a firmly headphones episode. Yeah. Okay. 100%. I am going to be reading what he says to her right now.
Do.
He says, so he palmed my cheek, his lips taking on a lopsided smirk when I tried to pull away, but couldn't. Every part of you, my little one, will serve me for eternity, starting with those lush lips. They'll wrap around my length while I thrust against the back of your throat, and once you know the taste of my seed by heart, I will make every other orifice mine to play with, to fill and stretch until you quiver with need, begging me to allow you release.
Yeah.
And immediately I was on board.
Yeah. I was like, my
saucers.
brain is like, I know this is wrong, but damn, I was on board. I was like, I'm being seduced.
I was, and I felt weird about it.
Oh yeah, you're gonna feel weird.
I felt so like weird about it, but like she hears him say that out loud, and goddess bless her, she holds her own, and she's just like, I'm never gonna beg.
Yeah.
It's literally never gonna happen. You can do all of those things to me.
Yep.
It's not gonna happen.
Yep.
And he is like, challenge accepted.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
But he's also, at this point in the novel, like he is still mean to her, right? Like he is still, as far as he sees her very much as this mortal thing and this mortal woman, and he has like reasons for, you find out later he's been betrayed, so she means nothing to him really at this point. And so like, even like at one point he says, she calls him a king, and he's like, oh, I'm a king, why don't you bow to your king? And then she like has to like curtsy to him, like all awkward and naked, half wet, coming out of the bathtub. And he says, what does he say? He says, oh yeah, he says kneel, but he also tells her, how lackluster, even for a whore.
Oh, that's right.
And reader, listener, I was furious, and she is furious. And this is huge for her, because she had done everything in her power to be useful to her husband beyond the giving him a son, so that she wouldn't be sold to a whorehouse. Yes,
literally.
Like literally.
And she talks about him like, no, he was a kind husband. Like, he only hit me occasionally.
Yeah.
And
it was like less than a dozen times, I think, he beat me.
Yeah.
And
like, he only threatened to put me in the whorehouse once, and I slapped him, and he slapped me back twice, as was his right. But he never offered to do that again.
Totally fine. And she's not pissed. I want to be clear. She's not pissed because she thinks being a whore is beneath her, or it's like a bad thing. Mm-mm. It's not about the morality of sex or being a whore. It is because she is like, no, like, you are lying about who I am. And it's like another reminder that, like, to her word, her sense of herself means so much to her. And that's why she's furious, because she knows he's trying to bait her by being like, you're a whore. And she's like, I didn't suffer riding a dead mule to weigh down my husband's grave to be called a fuck a whore.
Absolutely. Well, and I also think that it's because she is understandably so attached to her agency. And at every point, this society is trying to take it away from her, and she's clawing it back.
Yes.
And suddenly, it's just poof, gone.
Yes.
And so she's like, the one thing I can make sure is you don't call me a fucking whore.
Yeah.
And we love a girl who understands and wants her own agency. I also love that. But let me tell you, listener, this book has a fantastic way of making you very okay with not having agency, because this man, this God, says stuff like, and I quote, you can't imagine, little mortal, how I ache to plunge into your warm flesh, to have you again and again until we are both consumed with need. We will redefine the meaning of eternity.
We will redefine the meaning of eternity, Kim.
Jeez.
What mortal man is gonna say that to me?
No.
I literally stopped walking when that line happened. I did. I stopped, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a phrase that's going to stay with me for a long time.
Yes, because it is.
Holy fuck balls.
Whoo, but it also, like, it lets you know, y'all need to, he is a 36 at every situation. If the situation is a 5, he's a 36. Like,
absolutely.
He is coming in so hot. And this is like, you don't quite think this yet, but after a few chapters of sort of reading this, it's clear that it's like, oh, methinks this man does protest too much.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Okay.
He's trying way too hard to make all of us think he doesn't have a heart.
Yes.
It turns out, listener, he's just a broken boy.
He's such a broken, sad kid.
Sad boy.
He's just a sad guy.
I love an evil sad boy so much.
He's just a broken alpha.
He's just so
and he doesn't know how to
broken.
handle it.
No, he doesn't. And every exchange between them, whether it's the conversation about being a whore, like anything, it's about words, because this book is ultimately about whether or not words matter, which is wild. Like, I have read it so many times. It took me forever to like get to that, but it is like, it is every conversation they are having is about whether or not it matters their vows, the things they say about the world or how they see the world being true. Like everything is about whether or not these words matter. But the tension that it creates between these two characters, even as they are boning, because they're having sex from like chapter 4. Like
we have
so
to talk
early.
about that though. We have to talk about that real quick though. Because Orlais hands her this gorgeous dress that looks like it's made of shimmering leaves or whatever. And she's like, oh, my master made this for you. And she's like, oh, okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. That also reminds me, the one thing he said earlier that I didn't clock until I started book 2, everyone.
I know.
Fuck.
Listen.
But he says at the beginning, you can call me sire. You can call me king. You will never call me your master.
Yes.
Yep.
Because only the dead call him master.
Yes.
And this is very important to him. So she goes out there in this shimmery, dressy business. She's got some leather little shoes on, and she's marking the walls, being like, I take a left here and a rocco over here, and like I do a twist and then shout, and like that's how I get out. So she gets to the throne room, and he's like, come here. They start chatting. And then, chatting, like that's not what's happening. No.
Yeah, and I will say before she gets there, her and Orlais are Orlais are negotiating. She's asking her questions about like how many guards are there and blah blah blah. And it's fascinating because she's such a practical person. She's a practical heroine, which I love. And she's very much just like, Orlais's like, you can't escape. And she's like, listen, I hear what you're saying, but in order for my brain and my body to like sort of accept that, I have got to try. I've got to exhaust my options. And I'm going to try and do it in a way that's not going to get you in trouble because I recognize on some level we are both trapped here. But like, I gotta make an effort. Like,
I had to try.
Gotta try. So
to live with myself because again, she made promises to her sick dad.
Exactly.
She made promises to the pregnant women in her village.
Yes.
She has responsibility and obligations toward these people. And so if she didn't try to sacrifice her life and get out of here, she could never live with herself.
No.
Principled bitch.
Yes,
and
exactly.
One of those promises is to still way down the grave of her abusive husband.
Yeah,
like she keeps bringing it up, and it keeps
Christ.
pissing him off more.
Yeah.
Because he's so, like, he is, it is, again, this is still horror movie land. I mean, the whole book is horror movie land. But, like, this is still very much horror movie land. Because the thing when she walks into that throne room, she hears, like, this, like, groaning. And there's, like, it's saying, like, and she realizes that it's the throne. That
He's sitting on a bunch of mangled, sculpted bodies.
Yeah.
That are basically mummies.
Yeah.
They're leathery skins.
And their souls are bound.
Yes.
He's doing the Amarantha ring on them. Yeah. The eyeball ring.
Yes.
He's doing that on them.
And it's like, it's written in such a way that, like, your brain, you are reading her brain trying to make sense of all these pieces of information. And then the dawning horror when she realizes what's going on. And meanwhile, he's like, yeah, come and sit on my lap.
This is everyday stuff. You live here now, by the way. Yeah. Pale Court's your home. Get comfy.
In the meantime, he's teasing her like, were you my good little mortal? And she's just like, not, I guess. And she's like, oh, so you didn't try to escape at all? Interesting.
Because he said, because we forgot to tell them she woke up fingering herself for the first time in forever and has no idea why. So as she's standing there in front of him with the thing, he's like, you're gonna want this as much as I do.
Yep.
And she says, I will never want this. Let go of me. He says, so much fight in this mind where every fiber of your body has been starved for my attention. How long has it been since a man touched you like this? And like, he just goes down and he's like, and I
Yes.
bet you were thinking of me when you touched yourself. And she was like, was it you? And he says, he doesn't say yes. He says, who else would inspire such a wanton act
Yes.
in this little mortal?
Yes.
He never says, because he can control bodies.
Yes.
Like if he wants her to pick her nose, he thinks it and she picks her nose.
Yes.
So her question is, did you physically make me do that?
Right.
And his answer is, you just love me so much that you did it on your own, thinking
yes.
of me.
And it is important, that choice of words, who else could inspire? Because when you were first reading this, it's really difficult because it's like, he is giving her the filthiest, the dirtiest of talk. And like, I mean, she hands, fingering, everything is like on page. It's super sexy, but at the same time, it's horrifying because you're in her head where she's like, fuck this dude. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And it's
and one of the toughest things I was trying to grapple with, because the consent is dubious at best.
Yeah.
I mean, it like there's definitely some non-con in here, but if you asked me to point to it, I couldn't.
No.
That's what makes it so good. Weird. It's so confusing.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the non-con is.
It's a mind fuck. Yes, exactly.
It is.
It's such a mind fuck because you know that he can control her body.
But is he?
But
right.
He might not be because she might be so attracted to him. But then I got to thinking to myself, well, just because your body has a physical response does not imply consent. And that does not mean she's not being raped. But then also,
it is. And it's interesting that you said that because, so like, I'm going to say it now before I forget it, even though it means I'm going to jump ahead. So
no, I'm sorry.
what he says is that later on, he's watching her do something and he says, he says something about how he understood her flesh, but her soul eluded him because he didn't understand. Once they're outside and they go outside for a reason, he can't control her. And once he can't understand why her body wants a thing that her mind doesn't want, because he doesn't understand her soul. He doesn't understand her thought process. He doesn't understand like her brains, her motivation, inside, her motivations, her feelings. And for him, in his mind, if the body makes something real, then it is real. And so what you are actually reading for the first part of this novel, while you're so confused and uncomfortable, is that exact thing playing out. He's like, oh, she's a little horny. I'm just like, slide her hand down there. I'll just take care of her. This must be. And in his head, he's like, I really don't understand. I put your hand.
Seems good for you.
Yeah, seems good for you. Put your hand on the thing. Like, what's the problem?
Oh,
and he literally does not comprehend that, like, she can be of two minds about something, that her mind and her soul and her spirit is like a separate thing from what her body is physically doing.
And most importantly, he's a separate thing from the soul in the afterlife because there's multiple brothers that have different tasks.
Yes, exactly. So like, it is not him. It's not an excuse. He literally does not.
He does not understand.
Right.
Yeah. He does not understand. He is
oh my God.
And he says when she asks him what he is, he says something like, that I am your God. He says, I am old as time and born from nothing. That like, he is just called into being and given this duty. And so like, he does not know.
Just to go back on him explaining what he is, because he has to bring everything back to his dick.
Yes.
And I quote, I am the heat between your legs, the throbbing in your cunt, the moan in your throat, the tremble in your bones, and the ache inside your belly, hungering to make me sate it.
Golly.
Yes.
Oh, wow. No lies detected, but also that says nothing to me.
I mean, part of me was like, the goddamn hubris, but the other part of me was like,
he's not wrong.
Nope. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So in this first thing, he like has her sit on his lap and they go back and forth about like how, if she wants it or if she doesn't. And then he's like, you can go away now, like, get away from me. But then the moment her feet hit the floor, he grabs her wrist and he says, a change of mind, or something like that. And then he's just like, get on your knees.
Yeah.
And she hits her knees. She herself doesn't know if he did it or she did it.
Right.
And then oh my God. And then he's just like, you're going to give me the blowjob of a lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And she does.
And she does. And like, he's talking about how she's going to memorize the taste of his cum and run your tongue from base to crown slowly.
Yes, and he's given orders. He's given orders, and he's praising her the whole time. He's praising her, telling her how good it is, how good she is. Like it is. Whoo!
Listen, also, word trigger warnings here, listener. There's a lot of seed. There's a lot of quim.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of there's one more that I can't remember, but yeah, like there's a lot that quim. I don't know why quim gets me, but
it's
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
I've literally never heard that word before this book.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh my God, swallow me down, my little one. Yes, such a good girl. Spread it across your gums and learn the taste of my seed.
Right? Like,
holy yikes.
It's wild.
So then he offers her, yikes. I didn't hate it, and then I didn't know why.
Yeah,
I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing. So then he offers her alcohol, and he says, oh, but, my woman's hoity. You're going to need a goblet. And he does a little, whooshy thing. And the decaying footman who had been holding the decanter just turns into a goblet that's white and looks like the stone that's all around them. And she's like, oh, no.
Then it kicks in because she starts to realize everything is made of people. Or animals at the best, but like people. And then she looks at this dress she's wearing. I mean, and mind you, it's a beautifully detailed, gorgeous gown.
It is couture.
It is couture.
Which cracks me up because why is this King of Flesh and Bone also a magnificent seamstress?
Right?
He can do it all.
It only made me want him more. I was like, yes. She looks down at the dress. And she is like, what is this made of?
And he says, take a guess, little mortal. And she thinks to herself, skin.
Yes.
And like, she's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she is, at that point, she is undone.
It's information overload at this point.
Yes.
She can't process anymore. And like, I get it. She slept in a dead people bed. She just bathed in a dead people tub.
Yes.
Like she's standing on dead people. She's wearing dead people. Oh my God, what are my shoes made of? She's thinking to herself, like all of this is happening at once. Yeah. And also, here's the other thing, because I said he does a whooshy thing and the footman turns into a goblet. The other thing that I find so fucking fascinating about this book is that I've never seen a Hades and Persephone retelling that leans into the gore and the disgust so much.
Yes.
Because this place is foul. Like when he does a whoosh, like he does a rapid decay in front of her.
Yes.
So like he turns green, then black, then oozes, then like suddenly then turns into bone dust or whatever.
Yeah, like it's brutal.
This place is wildly horrific.
Yes.
And like, I don't know, he still ends up being a king.
Yeah, and he's not now, mind you, it's in a state of disarray. Which it's decrepit. It's decrepit. However, even at its most beautiful, it is clear that beauty is something otherworldly and horrifying, and it is to remind you that he is not a human being. And like that is like, it's part of the reason why like I enjoy this book so much, because she does such an excellent job of writing a god who is truly otherworld. Like he actually is like, in a way, he's kind of mystified. He's like, I don't. How you think?
He's walking around in the fucking dark.
Yeah.
Like, he's
like, what? I need this bone. Like, what do you think? I'm the king of flesh and bone. Have you not, like...
Yeah. What did you think?
How you think things
what
get
did you think
made?
was happening here?
Yeah! Like, it's like... So, it is like, it's... So, she is undone and is like... Basically, like, I have to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. I got to go.
I have to go.
I gotta go.
And she's trying to find an ally in Orlais.
Yes.
Because Orlais talks about how she spent a lot of time trying to get away as well. And, like, it's totally fruitless. But Ada's like, listen, I gotta take my turn. And she tries to find out when there's, like, the least guards. Because the guards are so decayed, she can basically just, like, run through them as long as there's not too many.
Yes.
And so she finds out the best time to do this is when he's taking care of, like, business and Orlais is getting her bath water.
Right.
And this moment arrives.
Yes.
So she goes trucking outside.
Yep.
She's batting jawbones off of people.
I mean, like a G. Like a straight
running.
fucking G.
Absolutely.
I loved it. Because, like, there is no, mind you, this is horrifying. Like, it's a horrifying scene. I cannot be more clear. But she is driven on, like, pure adrenaline. It's like those zombie horror movies. She is fighting for her life. And she don't stop for nothing.
No. Like, so he confronts her. His voice starts, just booming around the room, being like, where do you think you're going, little mortal? And she just, like, keeps going. There's fucking bone shards coming up from the ground to create, like, cages around her. Yep. She's battling through it. There's stuff coming out of the floor to, like, make manacles on her ankles, and she's fucking kicking them off as best she can.
Yes.
Yep.
Like, every fiber of her being is repelled by all of this, and you feel it so viscerally.
Yes. It's a really incredible scene. Like, there's one where she says, gray and brittle, a bracelet of bone anchored me to the ground. I kicked it with the heel of my shoe once, twice. The third kick shattered it, and I pushed myself back into a run, arms flailing for balance as I headed towards the bridge. Any bridge. Like, you sense her desperation. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so good and also so terrifying.
So terrifying. And, like, so then we sort of enter this rinse and repeat cycle that goes on for a little while.
Hang on.
Wait,
I don't want to pass this.
Kim, tell the people
everything, Kim.
Tell the people, Kim. Tell the people.
Let me just read it. Let me just read you this page. This podcast is going to be so long. I'm sorry.
I know.
I don't
sorry.
give a
sorry.
shit.
So she is running. This is after she says, like, any bridge. I'll take fucking any bridge. He's chatting, just like in the distance. You'll never leave me, little one, he said, as his smirk sobered into a grim line. Now stop, or I'll have to make you. He could try. Never, she says. Another step. Crack. Crack. Pain shot up my legs. I staggered for an excruciating step, then another. As if on bow-legged stilts someone had set a flame. I fell to the ground, palms sliding over the porous bone, chafing me raw. What had he done? I looked at my legs, feeling my lungs deflate and die in my chest. No, I would run nowhere, because he had broken my legs.
It's wild.
He breaks this bitch's legs.
And here's the thing. She says, you broke my legs. And he says, no. Twisted.
I twisted them.
I twisted them, actually.
And this is a refrain that happens throughout the book. Like, Orlais will say something about it, and he'll be like, nah, it was a twist, though. I twisted it.
It's just a little twist. It's fine.
It's wild because here's the thing about this. This is the point where you realize that his decision to sort of play with language means that his commitment to his vows, his oaths, his truth is actually not the same as hers, right? Because he breaks her legs, and when she says, "You break my legs," he doesn't just accept it and say, like, "Yeah, I fucking did." He makes an adjustment. He turns a phrase so that
He's
it is
basically
less
a fae.
true. Yes,
He's a fae. I was just about to say that. He's a fae.
Yes. Because at one point when he tells her his name, he says, "My true name." It is like, it's yes. And so like all the clues are there, but you just don't know it yet. And it is, I mean,
and like, you're too mired in the horror of it all to really be able to give it the bandwidth it needs.
Yes, it's true. It's true. I mean, he did just break this bitch's legs. And mind you, I'm still rooting for them.
I am already so deeply in love with this man that I'm just like, yeah, he just twisted your legs. Like, why did you run in the first place?
Why did you run?
I was not on board. I was not on board yet. I was like close. I was on the precipice, but I was not quite on board yet. I was still grappling with my own, sense of decency and morality.
Yeah.
And then, but listener, I'll tell you one thing. By the end of the book, I was saying he twisted
that. Yeah.
Why are you being so cruel to him?
Why
it
are you
seems
being
honestly
so
unfair.
Yeah, honestly, like
twisting them.
If you didn't run, he wouldn't have to do it.
Okay? What did you want him to do?
Yeah,
like problematic.
Problematic. So difficult right now.
It's so true. It's so true.
Okay, because then, like, he is a villain. He's a capital V villain.
Yes.
He knows it. He loves it. He bathes in it.
Yes.
And now he's going to bathe her in it.
Yes.
So he picks her up, fucking twisted legs and all. He takes her to this hot spring that's in his kingdom.
Yeah.
And he's like, we're going to do a bath time together.
Yeah.
And we're gonna make this okay.
Yeah.
So first he's like, I really didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so what I'm gonna do is make sure that you feel really, really good.
Yeah.
And he goes down on her for Jesus.
For Jesus.
Yeah.
Yep. So she can feel better. Because again, in his mind, if the body feels something, then it's real. Right? So he's like,
it's true.
And it's true. So he's like, I fixed this. I just make you feel good. Like, because he says, as he does it, he says, I despise pain. Right? Which sounds crazy because you're like, bro, you just broke her legs. But he hates it and he takes her pain away as soon as possible. Like, for having her legs broken, she's like, surprisingly like, that was painful.
I feel fine.
All right.
Yeah.
But this is, moving on. Like, and so he takes that pain from her because he despises pain because pain is a physical sensation. So if she's feeling the physical sensation of pain, then that is true. Then he is being awful. But as long as she doesn't feel it, he's like, burp, beep, beep, burp, burp. Everything's fine.
But then she says things like, I'm never gonna want this. What else does she say? She says a bunch of shit that's just like, I'm not doing this with you. And I do not consent, basically. And he gets real big mad about it because he's just like, all of this is confusing because your body is reacting to me in a very positive manner.
Yeah.
And she says, I hate you. And he says, only until I kiss you right here. And he pinches her clit. Sir.
Like, he literally thinks she's just lying to him.
Yes, she does. Yeah. He does. He says that.
Or at least to herself.
Yes, he says that from jump. And he is mystified because, like, the next chapter, you actually get into his point of view. And he is talking with Orly. And he is like, he just does not get it. He does not understand it. And worse, he doesn't understand. He says, he talks about love being a curse, right? That like he is cursed to have this desire and to want this thing that he can't actually understand. And he's thinking about her and he's feeling this conflict because even though she is physically responding to him, She's not mentally responding to him. And he's like, oh, I actually don't want her contempt. Like, it's like the first time in his brain that he's like, oh, wait.
This feels bad.
This actually feels bad that she hates me.
Like, I can't put my finger on why.
I can't put my finger on why.
But I don't love it.
So I want to dive a little further into that, because in the beginning of this chapter, the very first chapter you get from his POV, Orlais is like, will you please just snap her neck and have her brother bind her soul? Because what you're doing is worse than death. It's so cool. He's just like, no. And then he thinks this in his head. I shifted her closer, veins surging with that deep-rooted yearning to rut between her legs until bone shattered around us, setting her ablaze at the core, and myself right along with it, burning so hot together that eternity would lose its dreadful meaning. That proved to be an issue. The dead obeyed, the living warmed. I could not have both.
Yes!
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 So he's like, I can't snap her neck because I want her warm. Yes. But also, she's not fucking listening to me, and I don't understand.
But also, and he's just realizing that, like, he also kind of loves that she doesn't listen to him because she's entertaining in that way.
Right.
But I do have to do a tiny rewind.
Oh yeah, yes.
Because in that bath, something else happened that made me go real. Yikes.
Yeah.
Because he says that, like, because she ran away, she does need punishment. Like, he's gonna say sorry for the twisty legs by going down on her. And then he's gonna fuck her real good in, her vaginal canal, everyone. Yeah. But then he's like, this is supposed to be a punishment, though. And I know that nobody's ever taken you in what she calls her darkest hole.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never heard that before. I loved it. Yeah. I don't know.
I was on board.
Yeah.
I was on board.
Because it gave it this extra layer of taboo.
Yeah. Yes, it worked.
Because she's not on board.
No,
and
not at all.
And he is not gentle about it.
No.
And
she tears.
She is not ready.
Right.
It's bad.
Yes.
It's really, 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 really bad. Yes. And then it turns on a dime and it's really good. And so even that is confusing for her, both her and me.
Yes, yes. And it is like, and interestingly, it is the only thing that he apologizes and feels guilt about, right?
Yeah.
Because again, physically, he's like, oh, that was uncomfortable. You actually did not, yes.
I was too hasty. That's on me.
I was too hasty. That's on me. That's my bad.
Not the leg bit. You deserve that. But I actually did not want to hurt you when I fucked your ass with no prep. That was I was just really excited to get up in there.
Yeah. I just
but remember, it was supposed to be a punishment. So like think about that the next time you want to go somewhere.
Like it's bananas. It is bananas. It is I mean, it's nuts. And she is at this point like, oh, okay, I'm trapped in this horror. Like, and you feel her desolation. And it's almost like, I would say, I say this now, having read it already. It's like, I realized that like from the beginning of the book until she actually consents to him, like it and wants it like of her own mind and volition, you're basically like, this is a long masturbation scene. Yeah. Like that is essentially what is happening, because he is all of her like pleasure and response. It's very one-sided. Even if she is sort of physically getting pleasure, everything that he's creating is a farce. And he kind of is deluding himself into sort of like, of course this is working. I think this is a farce. Like, I think there is, we'll get to it when his brother shows up, but when his brother shows up, it becomes very clear that like he wants something that she's not giving, and he knows that he's not getting it. And all of this is sort of like, he has this hubris because he says it to Orlais that like, or he says it in his mind that he thinks, we don't need love. We can just go beyond love. I can just physically make this thing so real and so intense that love and feelings and whatever won't even matter. And he says this so firmly, but it's like, you're also like, Okay, but you're deluding yourself, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's certainly true.
Yeah.
You're deluding
But like,
yourself.
like there's and like she plays with it really hard. The author, because like for the next, I don't know, 20% of the book, we watch as they sort of do domestic stuff in hell.
Yeah.
Like she eats, they fuck. They bathe, they fuck, she sleeps, they fuck, she has to go outside, he says no, they fuck.
Yeah.
And like there's another moment where he says like, you want this, and she's like, I absolutely don't.
Yeah.
And then he says, I'm not going to do anything. I'm sitting back and relaxing, and you're going to take your pleasure from me. You're going to do what your body says it should do. And she does.
Yeah.
But like neither she nor I knew if it was her or if it was him.
Exactly.
Or if it was both, or if it was like, I still don't, still haven't decided what is real fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck.
The lines are really blurry. And as this is all happening, they're sort of talking to each other and getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And he asks her about her husband. And I love this moment, right? Because she's telling him about her husband and about like weighing down the grave. She made these vows and blah, blah, blah. And she's doing all the things that Kim said, where she's like, oh, well, he only hit me a couple times.
It was dozens times.
Right. And mind you, Enosh, the king of flesh and bone, is listening to this. And he is like, fuck this dude.
Livid.
Yeah.
He is furious.
What do you mean he hit you?
How dare he hurt you?
How dare you hurt him? Like, exactly. He's pissed.
Sir.
He's pissed. But here's what's great about it. He tells her this, like, oh yeah, because he's trash. Like, why would you even do all this for a man who like doesn't deserve it? And she's straight up like, oh, look who's pot calling the kettle.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something about what you've been doing. And she just like breaks it all down for him about how like just telling him like, it actually doesn't matter that physically I've been doing X. You know that I like hate you and I hate it. I've been humiliated. Like you're like all of these different, she just like lays it out for him. And she's like, you're actually like not that much better, bro. Like
you're
what
kind of worse.
Yeah,
you
you're
remember when
worse.
you broke my legs?
Yeah. Like,
I don't know.
And
That
twisted.
hurt.
Yeah.
Truly. It was a
not
tiny
let that
twist.
slide
He says,
ever.
No. And so like he's like I love that moment. And then she describes herself in a way, my God, this woman, I think she's my favorite heroine ever. She says, because he's asking her about like, have you been like quiet and obedient? Like, have you been like a good wife, right? And she says, quote, I've sometimes been quiet, now and then obedient. I've certainly never been both at the same time.
Ada. Oh, shit.
Ada is a queen.
I would also like to add to the husband scene. She is talking about how she wants him to rest his bones. And he's just like, I would never do that. I've made a vow not to rest anybody's fucking bones. But he wants her to promise him that she's not going to run because he desperately wants her to stay with him of his own volition. So he's like, what would your promise cost? And she goes, oh, just rest my husband. And he goes, let me get this straight. You want to trade your freedom for me to rest the bones of a man who hit you? And she's like, yeah. And he goes, you're a fucking idiot. Like, he doesn't say that. But
he's like you're out of your damn mind.
He doesn't understand. She's like, I made a vow, bro. Sorry. Like, I don't know what you want from me. And it is like, but there are lots of things, I will say, throughout this that are awful. Like they as they are doing this thing, sometimes she gets obviously furious with him and he will take her fury. Like she'll be angry and spitting mad and he'll slow her heartbeat or he'll make her temperature drop. And like it is the most infuriating thing because for her, she's like, I need to at least I can't even get angry.
This is the one thing I have.
This is the one thing I have. And mind you, he is in his mind, and as far as he's concerned, he is trying to seduce her. At this point, like, he's putting in an
He's in love.
He's in love. He's putting in
he
an
won't
effort.
admit it, but he's smitten.
Whispering sweet nothings.
He's a smitten kitten.
This is actually one of my favorite parts of the book because he is doing everything in his power.
Yes.
To seduce her, to make her happy, to whatever. And he cannot understand why she's getting gradually more listless and why she's sleeping more.
Yes.
And why she's just like generally miserable. And he's like, I'm fucking you real good.
Yeah.
I don't understand what the problem is.
I brought you warm milk.
And paints and berries for every meal. You're being very spoiled right now.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Orlais off in the corner like, she needs fucking sunlight, you idiot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she's saying it. She's saying it. He is trying to seduce her and make her happy, but it is still on his terms. He has not actually listened to her. He's not made a single concession. So it's not working. And he's just like there's a great moment where he's brought her all these books, and the same thing, he's kind of like, what's your problem? Brought you all these books. And she looks at him and she says, I can't read. Like, what? Were you even?
And he sort of berates himself a little bit, and he's like, "Of course,
yeah,
of fucking course,
yeah." And then he's like, "Fine, I'll teach you. I'll teach you to read."
And meanwhile, she's like, "Fuck, more of his
great.
attention."
Yeah, now he's gonna be my goddamn tutor. I love it. I love it. Well, and the other thing that I loved about the husband scene is that he said, if you weren't in love with him and he wasn't very nice to you, why are you so duty bound? Even still. And she was like, well, I had it better than most. I had my job and I had a garden.
Mm-hmm.
And she told you. Yeah. She told you with her mouth what she loved, the things she needs. Yes. And we find out later that he has access to a place where she could be safe and garden.
100%.
But doesn't even think of it.
Doesn't even think of it.
So, at one point, they're in the hot springs, and he can't figure out why she's being, I don't know, she's cringing away from nothing. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what is the matter with you? And she goes, what is that voice? What is that? That, don't you hear that voice? Yes. And he says, and then he just starts yelling into the fucking mist. Yes. Being like, get out of her head. Yeah. Do not do this. Get out of her head. Yeah. And come and talk. Yeah.
Because you learn that voice from earlier was actually a voice.
Yep.
Yes.
She is not going insane.
She's not going insane.
Motherfucking Yaren.
Yes! My baby!
The god of the in-between of thoughts.
Yes!
It's one of his two brothers.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the point where I realized that I'm unwell. Because I was like, Yaren, listener, you need to understand this man is unhinged. He is the god of whispers, the god of souls. So there are three brothers. Yaren is the souls. That is his realm. So when a soul dies and it detaches from the body, it goes to him. Then the flesh is the king of flesh and bone. It's Enosh, right? And then Ilium is the other brother, and he's breath, right? And so giving of life, making of the breath of life. The breath of life. Okay.
And earth is his realm.
Yes, exactly. So it's the three brothers, they don't have control over each other. They also can't sense or really understand each other. And so again, it's the same thing where Enosh is I don't understand the soul. It's actually same thing. Yaren is I don't actually understand the flesh. He doesn't.
And you can tell because boy, Yaren loves a fuck doll.
Ooh, yes, he really does. Yes, yikes, he does. Everyone. Yes, he does. And he's listen, he on paper is a complete psychopath. The things he does are wild, and I have still never loved a man more. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
What's wrong with me?
That's part of the problem, because I, much like Alexis, love a psycho god, I usually am down bad for all of them immediately. And I am down bad for Yaren. But I think if I was ever put into this world, I would run because he's so fucking terrifying. Physical torture, and be like, whatever, it's pain, it'll go away. Mental, because he will drive you insane. Sometimes his fuck dolls just slit their own throat to get away from him because it's that fucking bad. And listen, I just don't know if I have the gumption.
No, I know for a fact I do not have the gumption, especially in a place where I don't have my mood stabilizer.
No.
You know?
Listen, you all can come to the wedding. You'll be invited.
I am so excited for you.
We're happy to have you as our guests in our mind palace.
Our mind palace.
If this man took me to his mind palace, I would be like, this is how it is. Like, I want to say no, because we are about to describe, I want you to keep what we're about to describe about Yarn and mine and know that there is nothing that has happened in this book or the next book that has made me go, maybe this wouldn't be good. I'm still on board.
That's where we're going to leave you this week. Oh, just on the precipice of a psychotic god's mind palace. Patrons, part 2 is up for you right now, and Alexis and Kim will be back to recap Queen of Rot and Pain to get you that HEA. Follow Heaving Bosoms on TikTok at heaving_bosoms, on Instagram at Heaving Bosoms, and you can check out the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult on Facebook. You can also follow us on Patreon at no charge. And a lot of times, I'll put up some free content. If you love the pod and you want more people to find us, give us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening right now. All right, keep being a badass and love yourself as much as you love redefining the meaning of eternity. Have a great week.